Well, hey everyone, and this is Richard. I want to welcome you to Stuff We Can Do in Excel, Tableau, and Power BI. In this video today, we're going to look at adding and modifying slicers in pivot tables. So let's go look at our basic data. Here's our data. It's in a table format. We want to create a pivot table, and we've already seen how to do that. You simply click anywhere, you go to insert and pivot table, and here's what our pivot table looks like. I've already chosen that my rows are going to be my company names, and that I'm going to look at the amounts that are currently due, the amounts over 30 days overdue, 60 days overdue, 90 days overdue, and more than 120 days overdue. So that's our data. The problem with this, it's very difficult to summarize this data. We could, if we wanted to look at it by region or look at it by state, we could. We could just simply drop this, take this region, let's drag it down to filters, and we could create a filter. So I could go in and I could say, well, let's look at the East region. And when I do that, it shows me the East region. If I wanted to look at the North region, I could click North region, it would give me the North region. And you see it says right up here at top that in fact we're looking at the North region data. But what if I wanted to look at multiple regions? What if I wanted to look at everything except the North region? I might click on multiple items. In fact, let's say we look at East, North, and South and not the home. So I click on East, I skip home, I click on North, and I click on South, and I look at the data. Now I've got the data for East, North, and South, but it's hard to realize that. There's nothing on the screen that tells me what regions I'm looking at. Up here under my filter, it tells me I'm looking at multiple items, and the only way to find out which items I'm looking on is to click this little filter button up here, and it tells me which items I'm looking at. That's not really the most efficient way I might want to do this. So let's look at an alternative way. It's called adding slicers. So what we're going to do is we're going to click anywhere in the table, and when I click in the table, it's going to open up my my pivot table tools box. So we've seen this before. So we're going to look at our pivot table tools box, and under the analyze, it's going to give us some options. Okay, and under options, one of the things it's going to, let's see, let's go into here. It's going to give us this option over here to the left of insert slicer. So we're going to click on the insert slicer, and it's going to give us this open this box and ask us what kind of slicers we want to create. Let's create one just for the region. So we'll go down there, we'll click OK. What we now have is a slicer. I'm going to drag it up here. I can drag and move this anywhere I want to on the screen, by the way. I'm going to drag it right here to beside my data. And let's say I just want to look at the East region data. I can look at it, and there it is. And in fact, I can tell it's looking at the East region because that's the one that's highlighted. If I wanted to look at the North region, I could look at that. If I wanted to look at South region, I could look at that. If I wanted to look at multiple regions, there's a couple of ways I could do it. One way is just to click each one I want to look at. Okay, and now I'm looking at these three regions, but I can see clearly on the screen which regions I'm looking at, right? Another way to do that is click on this filter, and it's going to add all of them back, and then just turn off, actually I turned on home, and turn on East, control North and South again. And so there I've got my items I'm looking at. Now I might want to add an additional slicer to this. So not only does it allow me to see what I'm looking at, I can add additional slicers at the same time. So if I click back in my pivot table and I go up to Analyze and I go over to Insert Slicer, this time I'm going to add one for State. Now, I could have actually added both of these at the same time. So now I've got two filters. I've got one for state and one for region. Now what's nice about this is if I go look at the East region, it tells me that I'm looking at data for the East region. Within the East region, I've got North Carolina and South Carolina in that region. Now I've got 4 other states that are represented in the data, but those states are grayed out because those states are not part of the East region. If I wanted to go to North region, notice it's telling me Kentucky is the only state in the North region. In the South, I've got Alabama and Georgia, and my home region consists of the state of Tennessee, and all the others are sort of grayed out, and we can't use them. So now I can see I'm looking at the home region, and within the home region, I'm looking at data for the state of Tennessee. Let's go back to the East. It tells me there's the East region. I've got 2 states in that region. If I wanted to, I could just look at, say, South Carolina or North Carolina. I could look at just individual states within that region if I wanted to, or I could again look at both of them. Now, one other interesting thing we can do with these slicers is we can actually change the way they appear. A couple of things we can do. Again, I told you we can move them around. We can size them. So if I wanted to, I could bring this up. This one is always going to have just 4 items. I can make it a much shorter, for example, and put that in there, which might be helpful to me. Other things I can do, if I click anywhere in the slicer, it brings up for me at the top of the screen what's called a slicer option window. And when I click on the slicer option window, it gives me several things. And one of the things I want to go click on is this area over here called slicer styles. With that, I can change the color of my slicer. So I might want to make one of them orange. And then let's say I want to make the other one. I'll just click in this other one anywhere. And let's say I want to make this one a different color. Let's make this one, I don't know, let's make it green. So now what I've got is I've got my slicers. I can see it's easier to read them because I've got color associated with them, right? I've got my green is my, now it's not going to help me here. So let's put all the states back in. I'll look at home. It's going to give me that. It gives me the dark green for the north, dark green. So it tells me precisely which region I'm looking at. Within the states, it's going to tell me which states are being represented in that region. Again, the darker color is the state that actually is in that region. The grayed out ones are the ones that are not in that region. So we can not only resize these slicers, but we can color them as well, which helps us a little bit. So I'll turn that off, and now we're back to our original data. But these slicers are going to be very useful to you. We'll see a little bit in another video a little bit later on how you can actually link slicers together, as long as if you've got multiple spreadsheets that all are based on the same field. You can use that field and link all those different tables to one slicer, so that when you do the slicer, it changes all of the pivot tables at once. So that's a really useful tool, and we'll see how to use that later.